The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Monday.
Oh, no, not another weekend,
Another
Lord.
week in the Riv. Here we go. And
it was fall-like out there today.
We've got so much to talk about, as usual. It's
well,
incredible.
The Herald News finally came out with an article about shootings.
Yeah, you think? How many? What are we up to? About 500 or 750 shell casings in the last month or so?
I think we're somewhere around in the 100 mark for sure. For sure.
Well, it was 48 at one incident.
I know, and there was 28 at another.
So we're already pressing 100 anyway.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
What's the difference? 100, 500?
Well, you know, the thing is, these guys don't know how to shoot.
Well, the only problem is they're getting so much practice, they may learn.
I know. But here's the thing. Where are the police officers for this? You know? Because, you know, we've talked about this. And even, I guess, the union president, Mr. Pereira, Officer Pereira, or Sergeant Pereira, I don't know, what is he, a sergeant?
He's officer. No, he's
an officer.
Yeah.
Officer
they
Pereira.
have a separate union for the superior officers in the police
He even said the same thing, you know, because you get a call, and you got to have 2 or 3 cruisers, which is 2 or 3 officers come off the street to answer a call.
Well, we all know that, what did they have on the streets the day of the feast? They had 6 people?
So, well, yeah, there's allegations that it was a half shift.
Half shift?
Yeah.
While we had a whole bunch of people tied up at that, and we're also footing the bill, and they were tied up at the feast, and they're marching in a parade. You know, it's great to march in parades, but the fact is, our police department, they're jeopardizing their own, and I'm sure that Officer Pereira knows that. That's why he's complaining, because they're going to jeopardize the safety of the police officers on the street by being undermanned, and we're already undermanned, but we're severely undermanned when they remove people or underutilize the shift strength in order to divert them to things that, and even if they were getting paid, if they were paying the bill, still not the right thing to do. But the city's in an all-hands-on-deck mode here with what we got going on.
Yep, and the thing is that not only did we have police covering the feast, we had them covering the boat race.
Yeah.
And there was 2 boats that were in an accident during the boat race.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how are you going to cover all of this? Now, the sticking point on the contract, according to what they were saying in violation of 150E at the public safety hearing meeting, was it was overtime. Yet all these officers walking through the feast were on overtime. They're being paid overtime. And at one point it was over $30,000 in overtime to cover this feast that they're not paying. So when the city police department runs out of overtime money, what happens? They go running back to daddy. And they say, oh, we got no more overtime money because we spent $30,000 on the feast. We need more money.
Yeah, and we don't know if the boat races picked up the tab either.
Right.
So we're not sure. But but it gets back to this, and as they said in the article, people should feel safe in the city, and they're not. The fact is that the stray bullets are going around, and look, we can't. Look, putting more policemen on the street will help, but obviously it's not the cure. The cure is that when we do find these people, we have to ensure that they're prosecuted to the full extent of the law, and if need be, we need to call in additional sources. I mean, I believe there was talk about we did have ATF here.
Right.
And we got rid of them. So now, heaven forbid we have tobacco and firearms, a federal agency to help us. And who knows what kind of stuff we could bring to bear with that, and you know.
But I think that opinion piece from the Herald, the last paragraph, says it best.
Yeah.
Candidates say they want to bring the middle-class jobs to the city, or they want to bring tourists to the city, and that's fine. But there are people already living here, and they shouldn't have to fear being hit by a stray shot while they're walking the dog. Those people aren't the future. They're the now, and they need to feel and to be safe.
Well, I kind of disagree with we've disagreed vastly on
the tourism issue,
but the fact is that nobody can disagree that the citizens should feel safe in their own community.
That's right.
But then again, where are the programs too? Where is the reinstitution of crime watch trying to get the citizens in here to call the police? And you know, these things are just not being done. Why? Well, it's my opinion. It's because it's an election cycle. Nobody wants anybody to know how bad it is, because then somebody might say, well, obviously we're not doing our job.
Right.
Obviously, when you have the police union complaining about people on the street and overtime and not having sufficient manpower on the street, these things have to be addressed. But it's campaign season, and that's the way things go.
So in campaign season, everything either gets thrown under the rug, or we have all these fake press conferences and programs, and we buy votes with fireworks. You know.
Yeah, exactly. And then we because it's fairly easy to dupe the citizens, and I mean, the time the shots were fired weeks ago, and we broke it that day.
Right.
And we were the first to break it, but what was it?
That was County Street.
Yeah, and we broke it that day, and it was what, 3 to 5 days before any other media outlet even mentioned it.
Right.
This is another example of them trying to hope it just goes away. But then in the interim, there were a couple more, and you just can't ignore it. I mean, the fact is that they're finding bullet casings on a regular basis on city streets, and and it's like, come on. And then we have our branding campaigns. Yeah, let's brand. Yeah, come to Fall River, and rather than picking up seashells, you can pick up bullet casings. That's it, shell casings. Now, the last ones were 9mm.
The new homemade jewelry stores are setting up in the corner marketplaces. Yeah. They got necklaces with bullets on the end. So.
That's right. Yeah, and I know the Weedamo streets were 9mm because I spoke to one of the officers. And but I mean, this is just something that. But it's up to the people to educate themselves about what's going on. Listen to the news, and when you do, please open your ears, because while we're on it, I have to segue into something.
Go right ahead.
Apparently, we had one of our viewers, and we don't mind. We've got a feeling. You can, although I don't agree, as I always said, I don't agree with calling people names. If you want to call them a name, that should be a personal thing. If you want to call somebody a name, that's personal. It's not political. If you have a disagreement on an issue, deal with it on the merits of the issue. If you don't like somebody, you don't like somebody. So you don't like me, good. I probably don't like you. I don't care. But the fact is, we talked on Friday's show, and by the way, that show got a tremendous amount of buzz. We were contacted by Channel 7 News in Boston about the show. We were contacted by other media outlets about it, because wage theft is an extremely important thing. And like I say, I don't do Facebook and stuff, but I guess someone said that what was it, CJ? You read it. We disparaged. I mean, the name he called. Look, when some little privileged little Air Force brat said doesn't really disturb me. I don't care what kind of name they want to call. So that's irrelevant, because they want to call me a name. They know where I live, and as a matter of fact, I know they know where I live because they've been there. So, but that's not the issue. What did they say, that we disparaged?
Yeah, the comments were disparaging of the administration and of sewing machine operators.
Oh yeah, well no. What he really meant was that his head was so far up the mayor's derriere that he didn't hear what we said. Maybe he could, maybe you could construe what we said as being disparaging. Well, lack of action on wage theft is not a disparaging comment. It's a comment that was accurate. We had the individual who sent the text to the mayor. He said it. We didn't say it. And as far as sewing machine operators, how did we disparage sewing machine operators by saying that sewing is a dying industry? It is. Because when the sewing machine industry was in this city and it was unionized, they moved it to North Carolina because they didn't want to pay good wages.
Right.
They moved, and then they went from Carolina to now they're everywhere. Bangladesh, Mexico, anywhere they can pay
Guatemala.
3 cents. And by the way, for the record, this is going directly to that individual. So, by the way, it is still sewing machine operators. That wasn't disparaging. No one knows the sewing machine, the plight of these people, better than I do. My mother worked for over 55 years in a sewing shop. She started in shell-burn shirt for 12 cents an hour. The unions came in. She was a member of the IGLU from its inception. It made their working conditions and their wages better, but it's still a field where people are exploited. Even today in the United States, they find sewing machine operations hidden away with virtual slave labor. It's slave labor in other countries. So if you are so out of touch with reality, number one, it's not a great industry to go into when you're a worker, because all the workers even today are exploited. It's one of the lowest paying jobs and one of the most difficult jobs you can have in the world.
And we just pissed $225,000 tax dollars.
That's right. But rather than teach our people with $225,000 a job skill to go into a marketable skill, and as a matter of fact, you know, there's a little app. You guys are all, get on, instead of getting on Facebook, get on there and go Google what the best jobs and best fields are to get into. I can guarantee you, sewing machine operator is not one of them. But that's not disparaging to sewing machine operators. A sewing machine operator fed me my entire life. I have nothing but respect. I know how hard my mother worked. When she began, she didn't even get a lunch hour. Then she got 15 minutes. Don't you come across and say that we were disparaging to sewing machine operators. We just said, it's not a great growth industry. It's not something the state should be wasting money on. So the next time, get your facts straight, but you're too busy whining about the mayor all the time because you're a regular, and no matter what the mayor does, it's great. So you're going to try to spin it. We don't spin anything here. This is a reality. My mother worked at Shelburne Shirt for 25 years and Stella Ann Frocks for over 30 years.
My mother worked for Lewis Hand.
So that's right. So look, you're not going to tell us about the sewing machine industry. We're not disparaging anything. They probably have one of the toughest jobs in the world. They work like slaves and get crap for money. It wasn't about the sewing machine operator. It was about the industry. But then again, you don't really care about that. All you care about is spinning it for the mayor, who, by the way, has always been in favor of purple bags. And with that, that's the end of that conversation.
Well, South Coast Health, otherwise known as Charlton Memorial, otherwise known by other names, posted a third quarter loss again. Another loss. And they say they've got a turnaround plan now. Does that turnaround plan mean the board of directors is going to take a pay cut?
Hell no.
No, they're probably going to get rid of nurses and physical therapists and x-ray technicians and cause people to take, you know.
Again, the sewing machine operator scenario, the workers are always the ones that lose their jobs. The people suffer with the services they lose. And the board of directors never takes a pay cut.
Nope. Hey, they're running it just like the city runs.
Yeah. Never.
Get rid of 2 clerks, but hire an administrator with a $60,000 a year job.
The board of directors of a nonprofit, they all have 6 figures. Some of them, I think, maybe up to 7 figures.
Exactly.
And they all live out of town, and they're on a nonprofit, and they complain. And every time that nonprofit posts a loss, they cut, as you said, physical therapists, nursing, laboratory staff. They never does it cross their mind. It's kind of like when the CEO from Caremark makes $32.8 million, and the other one, who was the senator's daughter, got an $18 million pay raise, and she doesn't care that that people are dying because they jacked up the cost of pharmaceuticals. And guess what? It's happening again. We just got the word at the last IAC meeting that they're now going to pull 71 generic drugs out of Tier 1, the lowest tier, and put them in Tier 2 and 3. We're going to pay more for drugs that cost nothing to make. You know why? Not because it's costing them more to make the drugs, but because they're being utilized. They took the most drugs that they used the most, and they jacked the price up.
That's right.
Guess what? Just like EpiPen. Just like EpiPen. So for all you people out there who think that big business, big pharma, or big anything has any respect for the plight of the poor and the average working man, you need your head examined.
I don't think there's a CAT scan that can handle that. Hey, $240 million price tag for a high school.
Oh, yeah.
Are you ready to pay that?
Listen, I'm looking at this one. I'm looking at this quote from Malone that it's going to be, that is going to be a real gem for the city. Well, with that, I don't know if I can hold myself. I may have to go to the bathroom right now. I don't know, because I don't know the last time this city or virtually any government agency ever built a gem. I mean, look at the buildings that we have.
Sure they did. They built coal.
Yeah, maybe in the 1800s. We have fire stations in this city that were built in the 1800s, still standing. But look at the buildings, the other buildings that were built recently. The Durfee High School is only 40 years old.
It's already falling apart.
And it's falling apart. All our city buildings. But let's, for the sake of argument, actually give them the benefit of the doubt and said they could build a gym. It's going to be crap in 40 years again because we never maintain anything in this city. Even though we have ordinances that say that DCM is mandated to mandate public buildings, we don't. Everything's fallen into disrepair because we build a building and then we just wait until it falls apart. Because you know why? Because you can't do that to your home, because then you'll be living out in the street in a cardboard box.
That's right.
But what does the city do? Anything that falls into disrepair, we just tell the taxpayers to override 2.5, pay more taxes, bond, increase more fees, and take it out of the pocket of the taxpayer and the people. So it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to them.
This project,
$240 million
right,
to replace a 40-year-old building. Well, maybe we should throw up some tents up there and see what happens.
But you know, the thing is that they're not even. Normally, you get 80% of the building reimbursed, but we're not even going to get that because of some of the parts of this project they want. For instance, swimming pools are not covered under reimbursement, and even the swimming pool that we currently have can't even be used for competitions because some moron decided not to make it official Olympic size 40 years ago.
Yep.
So, I mean, but they're going to require a debt exclusion override.
Exactly.
Okay?
Again.
Now, the way they're raising taxes and fees in this city right now, do you really think property owners are going to be amenable to a debt exclusion override? And of course, they're going to say, just like Terry Sullivan sells it, oh, it's only going to be $35 a quarter or $40 a quarter.
For the next 2,000 years.
Right, for the next 40 years. But, you know, Terry Sullivan always says, well, the water bill's going to go up on average $17. You know, I haven't seen that $17 average at all, ever. Or $24 ever, okay? I don't know where he comes up with these average numbers, but they're not average because my bill went up $100 and so did everyone else I spoke to, at least $100. Well, it's going to be the same thing with this. Well, it's going to be about $45 on your tax bill. You know, on my water bill, my rainwater tax just went up. On top of my water fee, on top of my sewer fee, on top of my meter fee, on top of my rainwater fee. What's the next fee they're going to attach? The flush fee?
The fee on the fee.
Yeah.
The fee.
Yeah.
It's a fee. But, you know, here it is from the article. You know, school officials said the public will likely see a detailed floor plan and renderings by mid-November or early December, just a few months before Florida residents would vote in a special election. Oh, they're not worried about the money. When it came to the recall, they were worried about how much money it was going to cost. But when they want to spend our tax money, it's irrelevant. So they're going to have a special election whether to approve a Proposition 2.5 override to pay for the new school. And you're right, CJ. They're going to break it down and say, oh, this is only going to cost the taxpayer $25 a month or something like that. But guess what? People can't even afford that anymore. We've got people. We've got one of the lowest percentages of owner-occupied houses. Many of the people who own houses in this city are elderly, on fixed incomes.
That's right.
And right now, the water fee increases and the regular tax increases are making them choose between medication and food. Some of them are on the verge of losing their homes because they can't afford the price in Fall River. So again, we're going to put a $240 million dollar price tag. This not on a new building, but to me, $240 million is the cost for lack of maintenance.
That's right.
For lack of doing your job. What you were entitled. Why don't we drag everybody who was in charge of who by ordinance was required to maintain this? Why don't we drag everybody in the school department that was in charge of maintenance and ask them how we got to this point? Why don't we determine why they still got their six-figure salaries and didn't do their job? We have, look, if it was one building, you might say, well, it's an aberration. But it's virtually every building in the city's falling apart. Anything the city owns is virtually falling apart. And yet, there are city ordinances that require those buildings to be maintained and have been on the books for decades.
Hey, they don't even maintain Government Center. I almost broke my neck going down the stairs.
Oh, yeah, that's another article about the Government Center. And I think Mark Monroe-Dion talked about how bad it used to be. Well, Mark, go back over there again because CJ almost ripped the banister out of the concrete because it was barely hanging on and almost took a fall. You know, you should have rolled down the steps and yelled, Hammer, Waxer, Allen, and Collins, where are you? But, no, this is just, I mean, another, you know, it's always make the taxpayers pay more. We need it. It's going to be beautiful. It's only going to cost you $35. And then we can ignore maintenance on this building for the next 40 years before we come back and tax your grandchildren.
Think about this for a second, okay? $240 million divided by 40 years is $6 million a year.
Yeah.
Now, it would not have cost the city $6 million a year to maintain the building they have.
Yeah, you could have, with $6 million, you could have completely renovated it wing by wing.
Right, exactly.
Over the
you
last.
You could have replaced all the windows. You could have replaced the air conditioning, the ventilation. You could have done all of that at $6 million a year. So remember,
and had money left over, by the way.
Exactly. So remember, this is how your city, this is how your government handles your money. It's easier to piss it away all at once than to piss it away over 40 years. And it wouldn't have been pissed away over 40 years. They would have actually done something constructive with it. And that's the problem. And that's the problem we've had with every single elected official going back 40 years. Okay? Everyone in the school committee for 40 years, and I'm sorry to say that includes the mayor, including this mayor.
There you go again, disparaging the mayor.
Disparaging the mayor.
That's not just a statement of fact. You're disparaging the mayor because I'm a zombie.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love him.
But the thing is that I'm not just saying this mayor. This is every mayor. No. Every mayor has done it for 40 years. So the blame isn't to be put on one person. The blame is to be put on a group of people. Every school committee member for 40 years, every mayor for 40 years, every superintendent for 40 years failed to advocate for maintenance of their buildings. We've built brand new elementary schools in this city, and they're already falling apart. Really?
Yeah.
They're not even 10 years old, some of them, and they're already falling apart. Come on.
Yeah, well, there were too many people in it. Too many people that got kickbacks, went to jail, and had to retire early in the last school. We spent a lot of money, but obviously we didn't get the best bang for our buck.
We never get the best bang for our buck.
And we never do. I mean, you go to Las Vegas, they can build a world-class casino in less than a year, and it's still standing 10 years, 15 years later, and it's in beautiful shape. But they maintain stuff. And as you said, where is the accountability? There's none. You can't say, and you said, you go back, we're not picking on every mayor. Where was it? It's a pretty tragic statement when you can say that you can walk up to the fire station in Stanley Street that was built in the 1800s, and it's actually in better shape than a Central Station. So it's like, really? The thing was built like 150 years before the Central Station, and it's actually probably in a little bit better shape, especially structurally, than that station.
I think the quote from Mark Dion in his column from yesterday, he posted at 7 o'clock last night. If you need to be outside of, if it used to be the outside of government center was crumbling, full of cracks. You could dig pieces out of the front steps with a pocket knife. I did that once. Guess what? They're still doing that.
That's right. That's right. And
now you grab the railing to hold yourself up and you rip it off the wall.
Oh, I'll tell you, this is good. And I said, he talks about architecture, which is baloney. But he said, look, they fixed that, and when they were done, the building was still ugly as hell. It's not about whether it's ugly, it's whether it's serviceable, right?
That's right.
He knows that. And the cat, like he said, architecture, said, BMC Durfee High School looks like an abandoned tuna cannery. I thought that was pretty good, too. But, I mean, all you got to do is go down and look at UMass Dartmouth. That building architecturally is, 75 years passé right now. But the thing is that, you can't really, it's about having the bit. Look, we don't care how the building looks as long as you can use it. But maintenance is a requirement. It's a mandate. We have an ordinance. We have ordinances. And now, as again, $240 million price tag for the new Durfee and an override. Guess what? I know what I'm voting on that override. A big fat no. You've already taken enough in my water bills and my tax rate, and if you can't maintain your buildings, figure out a way to maintain them.
Well, okay. Why bother? It's not worth it. People should take a peek at this article on From the Ground Up, What's Coming and Not. 2nd Street Rooming House, the old convent, no. Denied a permit to increase the capacity from 15 to 32. The old Troy City Gas, 813 Broadway Street, been there for 90 years. Guess what? Going to be remodeled and reopened. Open from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. Canopies, lights, everything. The Santa Cecilia Band Club was granted a variance to erect a 112 feet by 56-foot building on a vacant property at 440 Bradford Ave for a band hall and lodge, consistent on-site plan approval. That's coming to your neighborhood as well. And finally, the property was formerly the St. Louis King Church, and for years was slated to become the Azorian Luso Cultural Museum dedicated to Portuguese culture and history. Those plans fell through with the passing of local businessman and community advocate Fernando Garcia. It's amazing how plans die with one man. And then an art gallery and photography studio was approved to be erected on a 2-story building at 10 3rd Street. Local artist Dean Diago plans to run the studio and gallery on the 1st floor and reside on the 2nd level. A building on the small property was torn down in 2010 and has been used for parking since that time. Isn't that wonderful? So this is what's coming to your neck of the woods. And we are done. We're out of time.
I don't hear a cue. There we go. Well, if you can't stay angry, they're sure going to make sure you stay poor.
That's it. Have a great day. We'll see you on Wednesday. And remember, People's Debate Wednesday.